New law. We all know about Newton's second law. Force is equal to the time derivative of the momentum.
Okay, so obviously that's not Newton's second law. And just think about it. Time derivative. Why am I taking a time derivative? Oh, so I can create a distance derivative. That's what the time derivative means, is they're going to throw time in the toilet and turn it into gravity into a distant dependent force when it's not distant dependent.
Oh boy, laughing my ass off. So now Goofy thinks that the time derivative of momentum is used to justify E equals mgh instead of E equals mgt. No, Goofy, the time derivative has nothing to do with E equals mgh. A time derivative is simply the rate at which a quantity changes with respect to time. This formula describes how fast x is changing per unit of time. With respect to momentum, the time derivative is a very simple equation to simply calculate the change in your momentum over time. So according to Goofy, F equals mv, and he thinks that F equals dv over dt is a contrived derivation to justify E equals mgh.
And just think about it. Time derivative. Why am I taking a time derivative? Oh, so I can create a distance derivative. That's what the time derivative means, is they're going to throw time in the toilet and turn it into gravity into a distant dependent force.
Goofy says that F equals dv over dt is obviously not the second law of Newton.
New law. We all know about Newton's second law. Force is equal to the time derivative of the momentum.
Okay, so obviously that's not Newton's second law.
Well, Goofy is really stupid. Goofy understands that Newton said the alteration of motion is ever proportional to the motive force impressed.
Fuck. So he says the alteration of motion is ever proportional to the motive force impressed. So ever proportional. And by proportional, he...
Again, Newton clearly stated the alteration or the change in motion. Obviously, when a force is applied to an object, that object needs time to accelerate to a certain velocity. So obviously, the change in velocity is very necessary. Now, Goofy, here's a question for you. How the hell would you calculate the change in velocity? What equation would you use to calculate the change in velocity? Well, obviously, you need to know what the initial velocity is of an object and what the final velocity is. This gives us velocity 1 or v1 and velocity 2 or v2. Then you simply subtract those two velocities, v2 minus v1. This is the velocity difference dv. Now obviously we also need to know what the difference in time is between v2 and v1. So we have to subtract t2 with t1. This is the time difference dt. The final thing we have to do is simply divide the velocity by the time. This will give you the rate of change in velocity. That number will tell you how much the velocity changes each second. So change in velocity is calculated by dv over dt. This is the time derivative, that's all. There is absolutely no other way to calculate your change in velocity. How else would you calculate it? If force equals mass times velocity instead of change in velocity, then this means that when a force is applied to an object, that object would instantly move with a constant velocity without having the possibility to accelerate towards that constant velocity. You need change in velocity, and you can only calculate that with dv over dt. And that's literally how acceleration is mathematically defined. Deal with it.